Thank you very much. Good evening. I wish to thank the organizers for inviting me here tonight to discuss the issue of whether or not God matters. I must state right off the top that, my purpose is not really to intentionally offend any person's religious sensitivities of anyone here this evening. I do know how personal and comforting religious beliefs can be to some of you. I'm a former Roman Catholic myself, and much of my immediate family still is. I wish, to make it clear that I've made it part of my life's work to study why people do in fact develop and practice religious beliefs. So again, it's not my intention to cause mental anguish or distress to any theist, Christian or otherwise. But having said that, I've been given the task of arguing against the idea that God matters. This I intend to do quite convincingly. In addressing the topic of whether or not God matters, I think we must be fair, if I can get this thing to work here. There we go. That I agreed with Dr. Craig, of course. The idea of God clearly matters historically and anthropologically, right? The study of faith-based systems of mythology and religion are fascinating and occupy, a good amount of my academic research. That's what I was doing in the U.S. at Harvard. In this regard, the concept of God matters quite a bit. However, I think we must clarify our focus here and ask basically, to which God are we referring? By now, it's probably quite evident here that we're not discussing whether, Zeus and Apollo and Artemis and Poseidon and all the others. That's not what we're discussing. These were quite important, I'm sure, to Greeks thousands of years ago, but they've fallen quite out of favor now. The same is true for Odin and Thor and all the others of Norse tradition, Mercury and Bacchus, Neptune, and so on and so forth. So I'd like to be clear that these are not really essentially the gods that apparently matter here. So let us be clear that tonight we're probably referring to a very specific God, though it hasn't been mentioned very clearly, but I'm pretty sure that we're talking about the God of Christianity. And that's fine. This narrows our focus much more sharply, but creates a whole new set of problems. For it raises questions about, well, whose interpretation of this particular God should we accept, and why? Dr. Craig is quite convinced that his understanding of God matters, and I'm sure he is convinced of that himself and tries to convince others. It matters a great deal to himself, but it really doesn't matter to me in the least. How is that possible, right? How is this possible? So Dr. Craig's claim, right, is basically that he's in possession of information which is absolutely certain and provides insight into the very nature of reality. And this is no small claim. I can't make these types of claims. Basically what I have is knowledge of my inability to attain this kind of absolute, irrefutable knowledge. I don't possess this. I wish I did. I really do. It'd be a different world if we all did. But I don't, and I admit that freely in front of you tonight. Essentially, I really don't believe Dr. Craig's God exists. And to be fair, and without offense, Hindus, Muslims, and Jews, you're all wrong as well, equally as much as Dr. Craig. So I'm an equal opportunist atheist, I suppose, in that regard. Okay? So I refuse to waste my time and energy devoted to a set of beliefs that may ultimately turn out to be false. For I have no real indication, I have no real evidence, I have no real reasons, although I'm sure Dr. Craig and I could talk for hours on, say, the ontological argument, or we could talk about the teleological argument, cosmological argument, for the existence or non-existence of God. And these are fascinating in and of themselves. And I wish we could come up with a logical way for proving the existence of God. And I thought Anselm did a remarkable job for his time in trying to come up with a logical way in which man can understand that God in fact exists. So basically there's two ways to find out about God as far as I see Dr. Craig may know of others, and that is God speaks to us through revelation, prophecy, and that sort of thing, or we figure it out. We go up to God. I've never been privy of either, but I would not discount it. So I'm a skeptic, but I'm a proper skeptic. I'm a Pyrrhonian, which means I will leave the future open to the possibility to consider that I may be convinced tonight or any other night that the God of which Dr. Craig or anybody else to which they speak actually does exist. So please don't think I'm basically a nearsighted dogmatist with my head up a particular orifice, that I can't accept the possibility that this may somehow be apparent to me, that I've been wrong for all these many years. So I hold that open, as I would imagine Dr. Craig would, about the possibility that he could be wrong. But I'm not sure. We'll have to see. Now, essentially, in terms of having no effect over me or my family or my community or my world, I'm much more concerned with trying to better our lives through rational and pragmatic means. Rather than hope for an imaginary being to take care of things for me, I'll pick up the slack and I'll try to get things to be a little bit better in this world. Not that belief in a religion can't influence people to be nice or to be good, but I don't need the promise of a hereafter to try to make things better. I think making things better is a reward in and of itself. I don't need absolutes to recognize proximal truths that can be pragmatic and reasonable, like compassion for our fellow man, the central doctrine of Christianity, which is love. I think many great ideas come from world religions, without a doubt. I'm just not convinced that I need a divine hand patting me on the back every time I do a good deed, or the promise that there is some wonderful, I don't know what, nirvana, happy hunting ground, heaven, whatever we can define as being an absolute reward. I don't need that. If it happens, wonderful. That's great, you know. It's kind of a bonus, I suppose. But I can't really expect to think that should there be a God, and this God is looking down upon me, he's going to hate me for what I'm doing. You know, I think, you know, as Edward O. Wilson said to me, you know, diCarlo, I think, should there be a God, the first people he'll let into heaven are the skeptics, the ones who actually challenged him, the ones who actually didn't just follow like blind sheep, but actually really question whether or not this thing does in fact exist, and said, good for you, you know, you challenged various concepts of how people defined who or what I am. So what's happened recently in history, of course, is that when Barack Obama finished his inaugural address, he wanted to include, you know, the words, "So help me God." And it was actually a point of debate. I'm involved in a AM 640 Toronto radio show Tuesday mornings, and I talked to a gentleman named Reverend Charles McVitie. And we talk about various things. Our last topic last week actually was, should these ads be allowed to go up in the TTC, right? But another topic was, should Obama be allowed to say, "So help me God"? You know, and they said, well, what do you think, atheist boy, or whatever? And I said, is he religious? You know, well, he certainly appears to be religious, right? But if you've read your Machiavelli, appear to be many things to many people, right? Whether you are religious or not. If that's what the Americans want you to be, you know, don't be saying, "So help me Allah." That's not getting you the votes. "So help me Brahma." No. Soaring Eagle, keep going. Keep on. White redneck fundamentalist Christian God? Yes, you're much closer now with that. And you're going to get a lot more votes with that. So play it up. So I don't know how religious Barack Obama is. I really don't. And you know what? To be honest, I wish he would, if he is half Muslim, half Christian, whatever, that he would visit mosques, you know, that he would go in, and synagogues and Hindu temples. I don't think, you know, I don't think any religious person has gotten it right